Welcome, everybody, to Adapter Parish, episode 53, as we celebrate with our 2-year spectacular. Before we get into this celebration of our last year of episodes, let's talk about our next episode. Halloween's coming up in just a few weeks, and in what has become a tradition for us, we're going to honor the holiday by tackling a classic. Last year was Frankenstein and his monster, and this year we're going all the way to Transylvania to take a look at Count Dracula himself. We read Bram Stoker's original novel and watched 11 different screen adaptations of the most famous vampire story of all time. We'll be ranking them all in 2 weeks on Tuesday, October 22nd. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 53, and our 2-year spectacular. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw.
We've been doing this for 2 fucking years. Can you believe that? Welcome, everybody, to our 2-year spectacular.
Jeremy just had a drink, just so everybody knows.
What? That is, I'm excited about this episode. That's where my excitement is coming from. I've had like 2 sips of a drink
Oh,
that
okay.
I made.
I thought you downed it.
No, I have so much of this left.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I haven't had a drink in so long that I can't even remember what it's like.
Why? Well, and just to remind everyone, why is it that you have not been imbibing?
I'm massively pregnant.
Super pregnant. You recently had an experience with a medical professional.
Well, I had an experience where I was given terminology. This is not my normal practitioner. I was seeing somebody else for a possible...
We thought maybe the baby was coming.
We thought maybe the baby was
but
coming.
Then it turned out the baby
was not coming. But I saw a midwife who told me my uterus was over distended, and
so you had a new thing to panic about and obsess about.
That was a new term that I had not heard before, and I went home and I Googled it, which you should not do. You should not do in the 3rd trimester when you hear something you haven't heard before from someone who's not even your own doctor. You should not do that. But luckily I was seeing my own doctor the next day, and I said to her, is my uterus over distended? And she looked at me with just a combination of pity and sadness and disdain, and rolled her eyes and said, I mean, yeah, technically your uterus is over distended because it's full of a baby.
And you felt better.
Well, I felt better. I did feel better. She's like, your uterus is fine. It's fine. Please don't Google anything ever again.
Well,
your uterus is fine.
I feel like this is a good thing to talk about, considering that we're looking back on our 2nd year of recording this show.
Yeah.
And I feel like the show's gone through a lot, but also our lives have gone through a lot.
Yeah.
This is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have like a crappy joke where I'm like, we blah, 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 and we moved, and also another little thing that we're having a baby and everything's changing.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is the biggest thing. But what else have we had happen this year?
We moved.
Yeah. It was big. We moved.
We moved to Studio B.
Well, this is the new Studio A.
This is the new Studio A, otherwise known as Studio B. We acquired a lot of stuff, mostly baby related, that we do not know where to put because our new place is ironically smaller than our old place.
That's the dream.
Literally everybody...
That's the millennial dream.
For the last 6 months, everybody, when I said, oh yeah, we're moving, said, oh, of course, because you need to get a bigger place for the baby. And I was like, no, a much smaller place for the baby.
But we've also been doing this show for like consistently. So let me ask you this. Looking back 2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago when we started planning all of this stuff, and I said to you, in 2 years, you will have done like bi-weekly episodes without missing a single day.
Yeah.
For like 2 years. You'll have more than 50 episodes. Would you have believed me?
You know, you asked me this last year.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year's retrospective, you said the same thing. Like, could you ever believe it? And I was like, yeah.
Well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah, we said we were going to do a show, and we're doing a show. Like, that was like our number one thing that we had talked about when we were like, we're going to do this show. Our goal is to be professional about it and release episodes on a regular schedule. And we have achieved that goal.
I will say, just as a little background, as a little behind the scenes, we are much worse now about having like a bunch of episodes on deck than we were a year ago.
We have no episodes. We have no episodes on deck, but it takes you much shorter of a time to edit them.
That's
it
true.
used to be that it took you a really long time to edit them, so we really needed to have a longer backlog. I'm making excuses. We have not done great
We've
about
been busy.
We've been busy.
No, but for real, like just to give people some context, like we didn't actually publish our first episode. I think I said this last year, but we didn't publish our first episode until we had 6 episodes recorded.
That's right.
And when we recorded our like 1 year spectacular, we probably had like 3 or 4 episodes in the bank.
Yeah, and because I remember it being a little bit confusing about which episodes we were including and which we weren't including. Like I think we had actually already recorded the big Sherlock Holmes episode, but we weren't talking about it because that was like year 2, quote
Exactly.
unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this time we have currently 1 episode in the bank. I guess one and a tenth considering how much we've recorded of this one.
Yes, but the next one that we're recording is a doozy. So like hold on to your hats for that.
All I'm saying is everyone should be prepared. At some point in the next few months, because of this baby, we might do a rerun. I can't guarantee that we won't.
We'll do it. We'll put a new introduction on it, and it'll be one that we have low downloads on, so none of you will have heard it.
We promise.
We have a plan. It's fine. Yes.
So 2 years. This has
Yeah.
been super fun. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I've been trying to estimate for a few weeks now about how much we've actually like looked at over the course of the last year. And I literally can't. It's so much, and we have so many episodes where we look at so many different things. I literally don't even have an estimate, but I know that you have some numbers prepared.
Yes, this is not an estimate. This is like the real thing. I just want to invite comparison. I just want to go over last year's numbers very quickly so that you have some context.
Okay.
What I did was I counted up pages read and number of books, and then I counted up everything we watched, all the minutes, and then I translated that into hours. And I got the minutes of everything from Wikipedia, and I got the pages from Goodreads, from like whatever the main book was on Goodreads. So if you want to quibble with the number of pages, that's where you should go.
I think last year I said something about not really understanding how books on the internet work. I was like, could you do like a word count? Like total number of words?
And I was like, no, it's
like,
a
no
book
one
is-
has that.
No, that's not a thing.
No one has that information anywhere.
Literally not a thing. Okay. So last year we read 23 books and we watched about 120 hours of content.
That's a good amount.
Movie and TV. So 23 books, 120 hours of content. Year 2, I will say we read fewer books.
Okay.
And the books that we read were shorter because the total number of pages that we read in year 1 was 6,608.
That's a lot of pages.
In year 2, the total number of pages that we read was only 3,639.
Well, a couple of fucking slackers.
Yeah, like, well,
I'm sorry, everyone. You know what? Let's just not do the show anymore.
Well, it's
Let's not
interesting
do it.
because one of the things we read was like Brokeback Mountain, which is a short story,
Yeah.
and we read like the Bible.
How many pages is the book of Exodus?
98.
Okay.
And we actually only read 16 books because we did a lot that was like movie to movie adaptations. You know, we did a lot of other things.
Jane Eyre was a 2-parter.
Jane Eyre was a 2-parter. We read fewer books. I will say the longest book we read was Jane Eyre, which was 532 pages. The shortest book we read, perhaps predictably, was Where the Wild Things Are.
Which you read literally on the show.
Which is, not only is it 37 pages, but it only has one sentence on each page. So there it is. So again, year 1, we watched 120 hours of content.
Yeah.
Year 2, we watched 187 hours
Jesus.
of content.
That's so many hours.
It's so many hours. I mean, the most we watched by far, I think, obviously, was for our big giant Sherlock Holmes episode, where we watched, I didn't translate this into hours, but we watched 1,872 minutes. Jane Eyre, we watched 1,305 minutes. But like a lot of this was not far behind. Like Frankenstein, we watched almost 700 minutes of Frankenstein's. The 10 Commandments, A Star is Born. Like many of these were long movies that didn't necessarily have like a book attached, but we watched a lot. So basically, we have spent the last year sitting in front of the TV watching stuff.
That's like 7.5 days, I think.
Yeah.
Or 8 full
Full
days of watching.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That
That's
sounds about right.
insane.
And
I'm just so happy that like I would have been doing that anyway. But it's
Yeah.
nice that we have something to show for
well,
it.
we always have like a show or something that we're watching together, and right now we really don't. Like when we were first dating, like we watched all of Buffy and Angel together. We watched Community,
Parks and
we
Rec.
watched Parks and Rec. Like we always had a show. We watched all of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like we always had a show that we were watching together where it was like we had like an hour show and a half-hour comedy where we would like watch the next episode. But recently it's been like, all right, what do we have to watch for the podcast? Not that we're not happy to watch things for the podcast, but it's just taking up a lot of our time.
I find it very exciting. I don't think I've ever said it like that.
No, we haven't. For some of them, for me, I have to say, like, I don't know, watching like 4 King Kongs is not like how I would absolutely prefer to spend my time, but
I'm hurt.
it makes good pod.
I hope so.
I would hope so. It would be terrible if we had been doing this for 2 years and had like not gotten better at it at this point.
I mean, here's the deal. If anyone, we always take comments and corrections. So if you'd like to correct that statement
Yeah.
in an email, send it to adapterparishcast@gmail.com and we'll read it on the show.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? That's the question.
Mhm.
And where we go from here clearly is a third year, we're hoping, of episodes. But in this particular episode, we're going to look back at this year of episodes that we have done. And so we're going to give you 3 top 10 lists from the entire year, and we're going to walk through them one by one. And those 3 top 10 lists are going to be a little similar to last year. We have top cast. So these are top individuals or sometimes duos that we thought were best cast in the things that we watched from the last year.
Yeah.
We're also going to be doing top 10, I guess bottom 10 adaptations. So the bottom 10 individual pieces that we watched, movies or TV shows, that just were bad and we hated, and we will talk about those as well and why. And then finally, we're going to do top adaptations. So we're going to do the top 10 actual pieces that we looked at over the course of the year. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Now, by the flip of a virtual coin, I will be going first.
Yes, a literal virtual coin. He said, Siri, flip a coin, and it was done.
Now, I just want to backtrack for a second before we get started here. Like this whole, we flipped a coin. I realized I didn't explain that. And for anyone that didn't listen to our 1 year spectacular, here's how we're doing this. We decided to do this draft style. So instead of the two of us kind of banging our heads together and trying to come up with a top 10 that we were completely 100% on the same page about and then present to you, we realized like we didn't want to do that because that takes a lot of work and we're not always going to 100% agree on everything.
And our styles when it comes to this type of thing are not the same.
Yes.
Jeremy is about 8 billion times more systematic than I am.
There's that.
I kind of just went with a gut feeling. So he came out of the shower this morning. I was like, I'm done. And he was like, all right, I guess I'll sit down and do mine. And I had taken about 45 seconds and he took about 3 hours.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I needed to make sure.
Yeah.
This is for posterity.
Yes, of course.
It's a lot that has to go into this. But we decided to do this draft style. So basically, a couple of weeks ago, we sat down and we looked at the whole last year and we made some short lists of like 20 different things that we could each agree would be on a top 10 or might be on a top 10. And then we separated.
Yes.
And what we each did is we picked our top 5, top 10. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be alternating back and forth. Now, the way this works is it's going to be like a draft. So if my number 1 is someone who is on your list, that means that you don't get to say them.
That's right.
And you can add another person who is lower than 5 on your list.
That's right.
So it's a nice kind of thing. I'm hoping that there's a few where we're on the same page. I'm also expecting that there may be some where we are not on the same page.
That is right.
But that will make our top 10s for all 3 of these lists. Want to get started?
Yeah, let's do this.
So let's get started with the top 10 cast. So we looked at every single thing that we watched, and we looked at some individuals and, like I said, some duos. There's actually one where we put like, just the entire cast of something
Yes.
to pick from. And let's see how we did.
Mm-hmm. Well, as the winner of the coin toss, I think you should go first.
Thank you very much. So number 1 on our list of top cast.
Drum roll, please.
From our Jane Eyre 2-parter, I have Zella Clark as Jane Eyre.
God damn it.
Where is she on your list?
Number 1.
Holy shit. Okay, so we fucking loved her.
Yeah.
Like,
she's just so perfect.
Like, okay, so here's the thing about this. Because like I said before, like someone being cast in something that is an adaptation, like, yeah, sometimes they're perfect, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes they bring something new to the role that you didn't expect, or they reinterpret the character in a different way. But like sometimes they just step off the goddamn page.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's how I feel about Zella Clark so she was in the 1983 miniseries of Jane Eyre from the BBC. It was her and Timothy Dalton as Rochester.
Yes, that is correct. And I think you liked Timothy Dalton a little bit less. We had originally had them on there as a pair.
Yeah.
But I fully support the idea that no, if this is going into number one status, it's just her. She was so amazing. And just, again, like, I think you said this before, but like, I feel like when you're casting something really well, there's kind of two ways to go about it. One is to have something new and different and part of like an unusual and groundbreaking vision and have it work really well, because sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
But when it does, it's great. And the other is to cast someone as if they had just stepped off the page. Right. So an example from last year of that first technique would be like the new Wrinkle in Time. Ava DuVernay's Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah.
How she cast it, because she cast it in a way that was so loving and in a way that was so clear what that book meant to her and what she got out of it as the director and what the story was that she wanted to tell. It wasn't casting that Madeleine L'Engle had envisioned probably when writing that story, but it embodied the spirit of that book so beautifully.
Yeah.
That it was just such perfect casting. And then I think you said you had a good example from last year of something where someone just stepped off the page.
Yeah, just as like a counterpoint to that, like someone who made it onto our list from casting last year was Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy from the BBC Pride and Prejudice.
Sure.
Which is like, to me, still is the epitome of just stepped off the page.
Yes.
Like he is the character from the book.
Right.
And it's amazing. And like both are super valid and both are great when they happen.
Yes.
It's that kind of middle of the road where someone just shows up and does a job that it's forgettable. But it's when they're doing one of those two things that it's fantastic. But one is not better than the other.
No, not at all. But in this example, what we are saying is that Zella Clark just stepped off the page and was Jane Eyre. And the funny thing is, like, sometimes, like, it is unfortunate for the actor when that happens because they become so iconic in a particular role that they can't get cast as anything else, or you can't see them as anything else. And I mean, for me, like if I ever saw, I've never seen Zella Clark in anything else, but she would always be Jane Eyre for me.
Totally.
For sure.
And I think that's the funny thing, too, in it, because I think the other reason why I think we both liked her so much is because it was in contrast to 7 other Jane's Eyre that we watched as part of those 2 episodes, where, like, Jane is described a very specific way in the book, and they just almost never did that in any adaptation. But this was one where they said, no, we're going to find someone who is, like, I mean, I'm really being reductive right here, but, like, she is little but has a really big and strong personality.
Yes.
Like, she's not shy. She is quiet, but those are 2 different things.
Yes.
Right? And Zella Clark manages to be exactly what Jane was in the book for us.
Yes.
So she is my number 1.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Moving on?
Yes, please. I would love to hear your number 2, because I took your number 1.
Well, I'm going to skip one and move on to my number 3 that I had on the page.
Okay, so your number 3 is now our official number 2.
Yes, that's
This is super
correct.
confusing,
I
but
told
go
you
on.
I told you I was just winging this shit.
Okay.
My choice for second best casting of everything we watched, Sean Connery as Marco Aurelius in The Hunt for Red October.
He's one of my alternates. I would love to hear why.
The first shot of that movie where he is standing up on the top of the submarine with Sam Neill talking in Russian about how cold it is, and you just look in his eyes and they are the eyes of a goddamn man that's seen some shit. And you go, that man is a movie star.
Yeah.
It does not matter. It does not matter that he is speaking Russian with a Scottish accent and then speaking English with a Scottish accent that is sort of Russian. His accent could not be less important.
Can I read you my note about this?
Yes.
Proof that being a goddamn movie star can overcome silly things like accents.
Yes.
It overcomes everything.
It overcomes everything. The movie would not work without him. I don't care about Alec Baldwin or whoever. The movie would not work without him. He is perfect. And he is my choice for number 2.
That's amazing. So here's going to be a really funny thing. Can we move on to number 3?
Yes.
So number 3 on our list is Scott Glenn as Captain Bart Mancuso in The Hunt for Red October. So I want to talk about him as well. We have both our captains, both our competing captains who become best friends later. I fucking love Scott Glenn in this movie. Like, I think he is the best actor in all of The Hunt for Red October.
Okay.
Like, Hunt for Red October, it might show up on our best adaptations. I love it. It's, like, one of my favorite movies of all time. But, like, the thing about the movie that makes it so perfect is the casting.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about Sean Connery.
Yes.
I completely agree with all of that. Scott Glenn gave a performance that was not just something that came out of his head. He did research as an actor. Like, he was actually on a submarine, and he tells this story about, like, in his head, like, a respected captain in the American Navy is someone who's going to be big and someone who is going to inspire, like fear and respect in his crew. And then he went on board the submarine, and he met the captain, and the captain he described as being so quiet and so soft-spoken, but still very firm, and he used that to inform his performance. Bart Mancuso is, I would say, along with, like, Jean-Luc Picard, like, and James Kirk, like, one of my 3 favorite, like, fictional captains of all time.
Yes.
Like, if I was going to be in a crew with someone at the helm, Bart Mancuso is the guy I want. Because, like, Ramius is nuts.
Yeah.
And Ramius doesn't care about me. And if he wants, he's going to put me on a life raft and set me off in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Or break your neck and pretend you slipped on tea.
Right? But Mancuso, like, he gives a shit about his crew. And, like, relax, Jonesy, you sold me.
That is a line that we say in our household at least once a week, if not more, to
Like,
each other.
Courtney B. Vance's reaction to that line, for those that have seen the movie, it's one of my favorite moments in any movie ever, but it only works because you believe the amount of respect that he has for Captain Mancuso, and I think that all comes from Scott Glenn's performance. And then later in the movie, when he actually gets angry, it means something because he hasn't gotten that way over the course of the movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I love that part where they're up on the top of the submarine in the rain and he's just like so furious at Jack Ryan that he cannot contain himself. I love that scene.
Scott Glenn's amazing.
Yeah.
So that is number 3 on our list.
All right.
Who's number 4?
Number 4, I'm going to change direction a little bit.
Okay.
So we watched a number of stars being born. We watched a lot of minutes of stars being born. And the choice that I made coming out of those various films did not come from our favorite version.
Okay.
But this was my pick for top performance.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to go with Judy Garland as Esther Blodgett in 1954's A Star is Born.
I'm not surprised you're going with Judy.
And let me tell you why.
Okay.
One of the things we talked about when we talked about A Star is Born is that when you are making a movie about a person and their talent, it is really important to show, not tell, what that talent consists of. And Judy's a fucking powerhouse in this movie. She fucking slays. She sings so many songs, many of them very long, some of them kind of racist. But we won't get into that at this moment.
So many songs for so long. She offends so many people.
She offends everyone equally. She really goes on a journey. Like, you can see it happen. You can see her talent from the very beginning. She sings and dances her whole way through the thing. She is just so amazing that you never think for 1 minute, why is this guy so interested in her? It's so clear why he's interested in making her a big star, because her talent is so obvious. It's just a delight to watch. I would fast forward the scenes if you're going to watch that are lost and are now just a bunch of still photography. I would fast forward that. But other than that, it's a perfect movie. It's wonderful.
The scenes got cut for a reason.
Yeah. It's all dialogue too. It's not even singing and dancing. Do you have anything else to say about Judy Garland?
No, I'm fine with her being on our top 10.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she wasn't on my list, but she is, as you say, a fucking powerhouse.
Yes.
Let's move on to number 5 on our list.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot on this show about levels. We want to see levels from actors. So if you're going to act in something, and let's say you're the villain, is it scary if you are at a 10 the entire time?
No.
Is it scary if you're at like a 3 the entire time.
No.
Is it scarier if you are, like a character, able to show levels? Because like any other person, a villain can be quiet sometimes and loud sometimes, and all of those things can come together to craft a villainous performance.
Yes, I would
Okay.
agree with that entirely. I think I might know where you're going with this. Please continue.
So we looked at C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we watched a number of versions of it, and who is the villain in this story?
Jadis the White Witch.
Right.
The
Now,
White Witch.
how would you say, in regards to levels, this character was portrayed in some of the older versions of this story that we watched?
Oh, there was one, and I think it was the one from the BBC miniseries that we both treasured as children, who was fucking crazy the entire time.
And it made her not scary.
It made her not scary.
Like,
it was not good.
It undermines the story so much because A, she's not scary, and B, it doesn't make any sense for people that know The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like, it doesn't make any sense that Edmund would think that she was good and think that she was someone he should, like, hitch his wagon to because she's terrifying from minute one.
Right.
But then in 2005, we got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe starring Tilda Swinton as the White Witch. Her performance is fucking amazing.
I just crossed her off.
Oh, was she
on
on
my
your
list? Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I don't know why I'm excited that you're like getting to put on your alternates.
It's fine. It's
Anyway,
completely fine.
I'm glad we're aligned on this one. So when you meet her in this movie, like, yeah, we're watching it, and like, if you know the story, you know she's bad, but she is not acting bad in the beginning. She's not acting menacing. She's acting like, oh shit, there's this kid in front of me. He has something that I want. I will be nice to him to get him to give me that.
Yes.
And then later in the movie, when she finally shows her true colors, he as a character is given the opportunity to grow and learn from his mistakes and learn who she is. Her performance in this movie is not just one thing. It's not just terrifying. She is sweet and kind and quiet and bombastic and scary. Her performance fucking kills in this movie. She's amazing.
I agree. She was also on my list. So moving on to number 6.
Please.
On our top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a minute ago about the type of casting situation where characters just spring to life off of a page. And the characters that I'm about to talk about do just that. But what we have here is a situation where it's not just one character, it's not just 2 characters, it's literally the entire cast of this film that we watched could not possibly have been more perfectly or more beautifully cast. And we watched 2 different adaptations of this work, and one of them I feel like you could even argue we almost liked better as a film. We liked both of them, but the casting of this one is so spot on perfect that we could not but nominate the entire cast, and that is my choice. The entire cast of the 1992 film Howard's End.
Okay.
We're talking Emma Thompson, Anthony Hopkins, Vanessa Redgrave,
Helena Bonham Carter.
fucking Charles. All of them are perfect in every way, in every respect. It is one of the most beautifully cast movies I think I've ever seen, or certainly that we've watched for the podcast.
One might even say it's unfair for you to include them as one item on this list.
One might say, and yet here we are.
I will say, too, you did take someone from my list.
I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. Kind of like Zella Clark and Timothy Dalton. I looked at this one and I said, I agree the entire cast is great, but there's one person above them all who I think gave a performance that shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shocked me. I'm not talking about shocked like it was, like, terrifying. I mean shocked as in I didn't expect to love this character as much as I did. Who do you think that is?
Well, if it's not Tibby.
No, it's not Tibby. I love the character Tibby.
You love Tibby so much. He's also perfectly cast. But I think you're talking about Vanessa Redgrave.
I sure shit am. As Ruth Wilcox. She's fucking incredible in this movie. I love her. I love Ruth.
Yes.
She's so good.
She's so good, but like she's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, she's such a weird person.
There's like, it's all so subtle. She's so many different things in one performance. Like, she's deeply emotional, but also like coldly distant.
Yeah.
I don't know how a fucking actor does that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's unbelievable.
She's incredible. But yes, okay, the whole cast is incredible. They're all so good. I agree with you.
Great. Do you want to continue to number 7?
This was another one where we had like 2
Mm-hmm.
in a movie together. And I really had to think about this one a lot, but what it really comes down to is I think one person in this duo was incredibly good. I really don't have anything bad to say about their performance, but the other person became their character to such an extent that I have to give them their own spot on this list.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, in number 7, Heath Ledger as Ennis Del Mar in Brokeback Mountain.
God damn it.
He's
I'm now on my B list.
like this is a perfect performance. It's so good. Not only for those that have listened to that episode, like Jake Gyllenhaal, I thought came out looking good. I thought he came out looking really, really good.
But like, he's not the only person who could have played that role.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That was I'm going to talk about it too, because I also had Heath Ledger specifically, but
Yeah.
not Jake Gyllenhaal. And what I was thinking about was, yeah, like you have to be a really good actor and really strong to stand up against Heath Ledger's performance, but he is not like iconically the only person who possibly could have done that role. And I feel like I can't imagine anyone doing this role except Heath Ledger.
Yeah. It doesn't just make Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, like, it doesn't make you painfully aware of the fact that it is slightly less than absolutely perfect and iconic.
Right.
Like, he does that to everyone in the movie. Like, this is a movie that has incredible performances from Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams.
Mhm.
Michelle Williams especially is amazing in this
Yeah,
movie.
she's fantastic.
But, like, everyone compared to his performance, you just look at them and you go, oh, it's Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams and Jake Gyllenhaal being great in this story with Ennis Del Mar. Oh, by the way, he's Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
His voice is incredible. Physically, he's incredible. It never once felt to me like an actor playing a role. It felt like a character.
The way that he ages over, like, what is it, like 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
so subtly, mentally and physically, as an actor, it's unbelievable. I've never seen anybody else do that.
And to be clear, it's not just like the makeup we're talking
No,
about.
I'm literally not talking about the makeup.
Like the tenor of his voice changes, the way he stands changes,
Yeah.
everything changes. He's incredible. That's number 7, Heath Ledger as Ennis Del Mar in Brokeback Mountain.
Great.
What about number 8? Where are we at?
I have a couple good ones here.
Yeah?
Well, I think I'm going to go with someone who falls more into that category of surprising casting.
Okay.
For me, but I guess maybe only surprising because we saw many, many actors play this character, and I went in with a very preconceived notion of who the perfect person to play this character was. That person, by the way, was on our top 10 list last year, so was ineligible this year.
Who is that person who was on our
nomination.
top 10?
That was Jeremy Brett as Sherlock Holmes.
Was he on our top 10 or was he like
He
number 1?
was number 1. He
Was
was
he?
number 1. Yes. So ineligible for renomination as the same character.
And I mean, I will just say it amazes me we've got this far without talking about Sherlock Holmes.
Well, we're going to talk about Sherlock Holmes for a second.
Okay.
We watched a movie that was not based on any extant Sherlock Holmes story, did not really feature the character as someone that I was used to or envisioned, and was silly in a way that I usually dislike when it comes to the portrayal of Sherlock Holmes, being somewhat, as I have discussed many times, a Sherlock Holmes purist myself. But the performance of Robert Stevens as Sherlock Holmes in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes was so delightful to me. Why are you laughing?
So I thought there was like 90% of me that was thinking she's going to say Robert Stevens. By the way, he's one of my alternates.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I don't have to. I'm glad it's okay that I didn't get to him. There was like this 10% of me that was thinking she's going to say Robert Downey Jr. She's going to shock the world and
No.
say Robert Downey Jr.
Fuck that.
Who we really enjoyed.
Fuck that.
No, we enjoyed that one.
Yes, but he's not making it onto my top list.
I'm sorry, Robert Stevens is Sherlock Holmes in
Robert
The Private Life
Stevens
of Sherlock,
as Sherlock
Holmes.
Holmes in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes embodied this character in so many ways that surprised me and delighted me. He was so funny. He was so thoughtful. We really liked his relationship with Watson. We really liked the whole thing about him sort of pretending to be in love with Watson in order to get out of something he didn't want to do, but doing it in a way that was very clear was not mocking of like people that are gay, was just so beautifully navigated that it just brought me so much delight and joy. It was like seeing a piece of fan fiction. It was like seeing a piece of really good fan fiction brought to life on screen. That's what I felt about that film. And it was definitely made by people that love and respect the character of Sherlock Holmes. It was very obvious to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my nomination for number 8.
Okay. Now, number 9, I don't know. Maybe I should pivot here, but I think I'm not. I think I'm going to stay the course on this one.
Do it.
I think we're still going to talk about Sherlock Holmes on this one.
Oh my God.
So Sherlock Holmes is showing up on number 9 again, but it's not just Sherlock Holmes.
Oh.
We're also getting Watson at number 9.
Are we?
So for number 9 on our list, I'm going to be nominating Christopher Plummer and James Mason as Holmes and Watson from Murder by Decree.
Wow.
This
is a surprising choice.
I put them on here for a reason, because one of the things we talked about for the 2 years that we've been doing the show is chemistry, right?
Yes.
And chemistry comes up in, I would say, like 2 different ways that are really important to me. One of them is like romantic chemistry, and the other one is friends. And being able to show a friendship on screen is a really hard thing to do. Most of the time when we watch a movie or a TV show where we've met 2 characters and we as an audience need to know that they're friends, there's usually a shorthand that goes along with that. And it's usually a combination of dialogue, like we need to get some exposition, we need to hear that they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone throws in like, oh, one of them is going to make fun of the other one and they're going to be okay with it. That shows the audience that they're friends. But when you have actors of the caliber of Christopher Plummer and James Mason, every single word that they say, every single movement, every single moment with each other can embody a friendship that is decades old. They do it better than anyone I've ever seen. This delighted me in the same way that you were delighted by Robert Stevens.
Yeah.
This delighted me from minute 1 of this movie.
That's great.
Individually, I think they're incredibly good. Like, Christopher Plummer's scene in the insane asylum with Geneviève Bujold is incredible. Like he that's an incredible version of Sherlock Holmes, but every scene they have together is amazing. I love them in Murder by Decree.
Wonderful.
That's number 9.
I didn't have them on mine, but I think you've made a good case for yourself there.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you are welcome. So I'm going to wrap it up with number 10, am I?
Okay, you
All
are.
right. So my pick for number 10 is actually also about chemistry.
Oh, good.
It is also a duo.
Is it a best friends duo or
No,
a love duo?
It's a love-making duo.
Oh, good.
So we watched 1968's Romeo and Juliet, starring Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey, and they are my nominees for best casting for the number 10 slot.
These children deserve it.
These children deserve it. Well, here's the deal. We watched a lot of Romeo and Juliet. We watched a lot. And I think that many of the conversations I have heard in the past about Olivia Hussey's performance in particular, I would venture to guess that the people having those conversations and having opinions about her in this movie were distracted by her boobs. Not that we weren't, but but of all the Juliets that we watched, her actual performance of the Shakespeare's text Romeo and Juliet at age 16 was amazing and underrated. Like severely underrated, I think, because I never hear anyone talk about what a good actor she is. And Leonard Whiting was just there for her. It was like a male ballet dancer supporting a female ballet dancer. He was right there for her, giving her all of the support that she needed, and did great as well himself. But the two of them together had the most amazing chemistry, both, physically, but also in their recitation of this difficult dialogue. Like, I think people don't realize, like, people think, oh, Romeo and Juliet, I had to read it in school. Like, Shakespeare's dialogue is tough. Like, it's hard. Romeo and Juliet's not like an easy play. And they just made it look completely effortless. Her performance is fantastic. Her facial expressions throughout, like, you can just see everything she's thinking on her face. She's not just standing up there reciting lines that she doesn't understand. She just does an amazing job. And I think, as I say, Leonard Whiting does an amazing job too, but part of his job is to be there for her. And that is why they are my nominees for 10th place slot. Top cast. The end.
Well, we have our top 10. I really like this top 10.
Yeah,
You
this
definitely
is
took
great.
some of mine. I would love for each of us to like give maybe an alternate, like an honorable mention. Do you mind if I give one?
Yeah,
that
I have 2 honorable mentions.
Yeah, so I have a duo that didn't make it into our top 10, but I was kind of hoping that they would, but I'm okay that the fact that they didn't. So this goes back to Jane Eyre. Now, this is a duo that includes an actor that I have seen get a lot of flack for playing this role over the years. And in generally negative reviews I see of this movie, I see people giving this actor flack, and he's one of the reasons they give it a negative review. Having read the book and having watched multiple versions and then watching it, I'm really surprised that the Charlotte Gainsbourg William Hurt one gets as much hate as it does, because it is such a strong movie. But the two of them specifically as actors are so perfectly cast against each other. He in so many ways was for me the Rochester that was in the book, and she does an amazing version of Jane, and they have a chemistry that I think a lot of the couples didn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Who was one of your honorable mentions?
Well, we had an honorable mention that was an honorable mention specifically for the reason that he was an original character and therefore didn't really count. So
I was wondering if he was going to show up
So
on here.
I would just like to throw into the ring the performance of John C. Reilly in Kong Skull Island. Because he was a pure delight. Just a pure delight in every way. If you're listening to this, you probably just listened to that episode, so we don't necessarily need to recap like all of the things we thought about his performance. But again, not technically eligible for this award, being an original character written by the screenwriters. But a wonderful addition to that film.
He's just great. He's a delight in everything he's in, and we finally got to see him in something on our show.
Yes. In all seriousness, the other two actually that I had on my list written down were Yul Brynner as Ramesses in The Ten Commandments. Kind of a shocking choice since I did not like that movie. I think I'm on record as saying. But also Jackie Chan as Mr. Han in the 2010 Karate Kid.
Jackie Chan's great.
He was so great. He was, again, like in terms of like kind of maybe an obvious casting choice for like, you know, a kung fu fighter who really rose above the obviousness of his casting choice by delivering an amazing performance with, again, like talk about chemistry. He had beautiful chemistry with Jaden Smith in that film.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is great.
Cool.
Great stuff. Oh, man, that's so many good things we're talking about. Do you want to talk about some crap?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about some bullshit.
I'm so excited to talk about some bullshit.
I won the coin toss at the beginning.
Yes.
But it is only fair that we alternate as we go through here. So I do get 2 number ones, but you do get a number 1 this episode.
Great.
Let's talk about our bottom 10 adaptations.
This is fine.
These are the worst things that we watched in our estimation, in our opinion, over the course of the last year.
Great.
These are 10 things that I'm so glad we watched so we could talk about on the show, but geez, boy howdy.
Golly gee.
Golly gee, I did not like this bullshit.
Yes.
Number 1, I would love to hear what our number 1 is.
It would be unfair to any of the things that we watched if the number 1 choice on our list was literally the only thing out of 187 hours that we watched that I could not finish.
I'm crossing something off right now.
I literally could not watch it. I had to go in another room and close my eyes and ears until Jeremy told me it was done. And for that reason, I nominate for number 1 worst adaptation, the film Victor Frankenstein.
Oh, man. Okay, so this was on my list as well.
Yes.
And this means I get an alternate. So Max Landis wrote this movie, and I put the blame for this movie on him because he's real easy to hate.
Max Landis, who has recently been outed as a #MeToo person, so let's just put all the hate on him for everything.
He's the fucking worst.
Yes.
Like, he's what happens when nepotism goes bad.
Oh, no.
Let's just say.
Nepotism is always bad.
What are you talking about? You just thought Jaden Smith was great in The Karate
fair.
Kid.
No, you're right. That's fair.
That is. No, I disagree with that.
That's fair.
Here's the thing. This is my impression of Max Landis. This is what's going through his head all the time. What if I took this thing and mixed it with this thing and made it super violent and disturbing? I write movies. That's Max Landis all the time.
Wow,
Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's accurate.
Like, he is not an honest writer, because I feel like an honest writer gives a shit about what they're writing. And I feel like he doesn't give a shit about what he's writing. His goal for writing is just, can I mash ideas together, put them on the page in the most disturbing way possible, and then just package it and send it out. I'm great.
Yes.
That's him. And Victor Frankenstein is an amazing example of just how poor he is as a writer. This movie I sat through the whole thing.
You did.
This movie's a fucking slog. And this is actually a great example, I think, for number one on our list, because there are people in this movie that I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a movie that stars James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe. These are two actors that I look forward to anytime I see them in something. I don't blame anyone for this other than Max Landis.
Yeah.
You know what? I am so happy that this is number one.
Yay.
That's a great choice.
Thank you. Fantastic.
What a piece of shit.
Let's not give it any more of our precious, precious time. Let's move on to number 2.
So number 2, Jane Eyre is going to show up on this list a lot.
Oh my God.
Are you crossing anything off your list right now?
Maybe.
So in 1997, there was a TV movie.
Yes, I am.
Starring Samantha Morton and Kieran Hines. Okay. So here's my note about the 1997 Jane Eyre. Also, one thing, okay, there is someone, I feel so bad. We posted about this episode on Instagram, with a little photo mosaic, and some sweet person commented that the Samantha Morton and Kieran Hines one is their favorite version of Jane Eyre.
They were really earnest about it, and then they clearly had not heard the episode at this point because we proceeded to shit all over it. And if you are that person, we feel bad. You're entitled to your opinion. You can like what you like. That's fine. We support you.
This is our opinion.
Yeah.
That is, I want to be clear. This is my opinion. My opinion is that this movie is terrible, but that is an opinion.
Yes.
And anyone who loves something should fucking love it, regardless of what we say.
That's right. I love the Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon movie Out to Sea, for example.
Okay.
That's something I love and will never apologize for.
Here's my problem. If you're going to make a story about two people falling in love, I should believe that the two people are falling in love.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
This Rochester, we watched so many different Rochesters. We watched Rochesters that were loud and bombastic. We watched Rochesters that were fucking sexy as hell. We watched Rochesters that were like quiet and reserved. We only watched one Rochester that I would define as a fucking serial killer, and that's Kieran Hines.
He really was like sniffing her skin and like basically it was pretty clear he wanted to make like a skin suit out of her.
It's no good.
He was not good.
It's no good. And Samantha Morton does such a good job because she clearly loves him, but it makes the story so problematic in the telling because he's being so horribly abusive to her the whole time.
It's incredibly bad.
This movie is a mess.
Yes. Let's move on.
Okay. So what's number 3 on our top top bottom 10?
Our top bottom. Number 3 is a movie that was just the ultimate wonderful combination of racism and problematic script, extremely poor acting, and completely incomprehensible plot. And that is the Charlton Heston as Sherlock Holmes film Crucifer of Blood.
Oh, yeah, that one was real bad.
It was so bad. And like really, really, really creepy love scenes. That's number 4 of the things that were in that.
What made it creepy? Just because Watson's a million years old macking on, what's her name?
Jane from Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Yes, that one.
She has a name.
I don't know it.
We're bad people. Go on, talk about the Crucifer of Blood.
It's just, again, talk about nepotism, because this was directed by Charlton Heston's son, who apparently has only ever directed things starring his dad, I think.
Which is very sweet.
Which is fine.
As long as I don't have to watch it.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't even have anything, like, Charlton Heston's performance in this is awful.
Mm-hmm.
The plot is batshit.
Which is weird because it's based on a Sherlock Holmes story.
Kind of. Well, it's based on the Sign of 4, kind of.
Yeah.
The plot is batshit. There is a point where Charlton Heston, in all seriousness, puts on yellow face and does a like stereotypical Chinese accent as a person who is in disguise. There is also a very unsettling depiction of a South Sea Islander, and just the love stuff with Watson falling in love with the young lady is disgusting. So I just an all around incredibly unpleasant experience. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
Oof. Oh, it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
Does that mean we get to go to number 4?
Please.
All right, so this goes out to all the Jews in our audience.
Oh, boy.
This one right here. We're gonna pass over it up right now. So I'm gonna need you to help me out with this one.
I think this is on my list.
Can you give me some Dianus? Can you give me some It Would Have Been Enoughs?
No.
Please.
This does not deserve it.
If this movie was only boring,
Dianu.
if this movie was completely by the numbers and Ridley Scott just showed up,
Dianu.
if this movie eliminated all the female characters,
Dianu.
if this movie was deeply racially problematic,
Dianu.
Okay, so this is Exodus: Gods and Kings from
Oh
2014.
my god, this was number 4 on my list.
Holy shit. I went in wanting to like this one.
I didn't.
Because it's Ridley Scott directing a sword and sandals movie. Like, this is big stuff. And this was part of our 10 Commandments episode. I was always so interested in this, like, so-called more realistic kind of telling of the Passover story of the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And holy shit, this movie is a disaster.
Yeah, apparently what more realistic means is that there's no women anywhere and Moses is filthy all the time.
He just gets dirtier
Just so
and
dirty.
dirtier. Oh my God. Like, let me walk through these. So it is boring. It is incredibly boring. And this is one of the, okay, so this is not the greatest story ever told. But
I think that's Jesus.
yeah, this is like the second or third greatest story ever told. And it's super boring. This was Ridley Scott showing up. This was him saying, I'm going to do all the same stuff I did for Gladiator, but I'm going to do it for this, and it's going to be just as good. The problem is, Gladiator was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Even Gladiator has tons of problems, but at least it was really, really fun. This one was not. The female characters. How important would you say that, Miriam is to the story of Passover?
To the story of Passover, like
Yes.
the general story of Passover.
Yeah.
Extremely important.
How many minutes is she on screen in this movie?
4.
What does her last scene involve her doing?
Leaving.
Yup. Holy shit, like this movie. And then let's get to the deeply problematic stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, where does this movie take place?
Egypt.
Okay.
Where is Egypt?
Okay, Egypt is in Africa.
Yes.
So every single speaking role in this movie is played by an actor who is
Clearly not from Africa.
okay. And every other character in this movie who doesn't get any lines is what?
Brown.
Yup. Basically, and even the white people are painted brown.
Painted brown. Why?
It's just awful. And I'm not going to go into it. If you want to hear more about it, listen to that episode.
Please
but
do.
Ridley Scott had some really, really shitty things to say about the fact that all the main cast in this movie were white that I don't want to repeat now.
Let's not.
He's a filmmaker I like, but holy shit. This Exodus: Gods and Kings 2014 is a mess. That is number 4 on our list.
Well, I'm going to move into something a little less dramatically hateful for number 5.
Oh, good.
I'm going to pick something that actually has a similar issue to Exodus: Gods and Kings, but it went about it in a different way.
For number 5?
For number 5, where
Okay.
the filmmaker wanted to modernize an older story in a particular way,
Okay.
but went about it in a way that was incomprehensible. So I guess it does kind of draw some parallels.
Okay.
And then proceeded to cast people who were not equal to the material.
Okay.
And that is 2013's Romeo and Juliet,
Oh,
starring Haley
no.
Steinfeld.
Oh, no.
As I recall, what happened here is that the director attempted to sort of modernize the Shakespearean language, essentially just by substituting one word for another. Like, they were speaking sort of in verse, but in sort of like a weird verse translation, which made the script itself completely incomprehensible, just completely weird and awful. And then the actors just weren't up to it. They just didn't do a good job. Like that's really all it is. It was unpleasant to watch because nobody did a good job and nobody really gave a shit about, I just didn't understand why anybody involved was interested in doing Romeo and Juliet. It did not seem like anybody cared about doing the story of Romeo and Juliet, much less cared about presenting Shakespeare's beautiful language on screen. I don't understand this movie. I don't understand why it was made. I don't understand the point. It was completely pointless and bad. And that is why it is on this list.
Yeah. Like, I feel like, was Julian Fellows on your shit list before we watched this movie?
Not really.
Is he on your shit list now?
A bit, yeah.
The writer of this movie, by the way.
Yes, yes.
Yes, the creator of Downton Abbey.
The writer of Downton
And the
Abbey.
writer of fucking Gosford Park.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is a good movie.
it's a great movie, but holy shit, this movie, I'm fine with that being in our top 10.
For real.
I hated watching that movie. All right, number 6. So there's a thing that comes up a lot when we talk about movies, and that's tone.
Mhm.
So a lot of people will say, and I've always subscribed to this, is that the director's like number one job when making a movie is managing tone.
Mhm.
Because if you want your movie to work, if you want your story to work, the tone has to be managed right.
Mhm.
And this can mean a lot of different things. Like maybe you want your tone to be like sometimes comedy and sometimes drama. That
Mhm.
can happen. You can make that work.
Sure.
Sometimes you want it to be violent and sometimes you want it to be sweet. Like that can work as well. Sometimes you want it to be all funny or all dramatic. These are all choices that you have to make. But just veering wildly between them and not really being able to pick one is going to lead to an unsuccessful movie.
I think I know which movie you've chosen for this.
Here's another thing. Before you say, let's see if you're right.
Okay.
Here's another thing that's sometimes important when you're adapting a prior work is somehow in some way being respectful of the original work.
Uh-huh.
Like you don't have to copy everything, but you at least have to respect the original.
Yes.
Well, Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich
Oh
did
no.
not
They did not.
do either of these things well when they made Godzilla in 1998.
They did not.
Oh, what a movie.
What a terrible film.
What a terrible movie that I really enjoyed in the theater because I was 15 when it came out. Like, what a mess.
Literal mess.
Like, this movie is sometimes dramatic and sometimes it's funny, but it never works together. It never gels. Like, it never does it in a way where you care about any of the characters. And, like, sometimes characters die violent deaths, and sometimes, like, knockoff velociraptors are slipping on gumballs.
Yeah, that
Like,
was the worst scene in the movie where they were like slipping on gumballs like it was a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Like, it just, none of it works. None of it makes sense. It's terrible. Oh, God.
It's one of those movies where like if you actually consider the actions of the characters literally,
Mhm.
like the fact that they're making goofy jokes and like making out and doing all this stuff while New York is literally burning behind them and people are dying. If you take those actions literally, they are horrible people.
Yeah.
Every one of them is the worst person because they are not adequately taking the situation seriously. It's a really bad movie. It's really, really bad. It has nothing redeeming about it whatsoever. Not one performance, like not one funny character, nothing good.
Oh, God, I'm like, I don't know. I guess this is just the person I am. I'm trying to defend it right now from that statement,
Yeah.
but I can't. So
No.
that means we're moving on to number 7 on our list.
Fantastic.
What's number 7, please?
Number 7 is, and I'm skipping a couple because I kind of I want to talk about this.
No, we got to go with Ariel's gut right now.
That's right. My my over distended gut. My God. It's full of a baby.
Mhm.
Number 7 is a film that honestly, like kind of like Godzilla for You, is a film that I had seen when I was younger,
Yeah.
remembered enjoying it,
Ooh, okay.
and was kind of coming into it like thinking it would be fun, like funny family film to watch, and like discuss lightly. But it turned out to be one of my most hated films that we watched this whole time because the characters were all just, the main character in particular was such a piece of absolute garbage that I couldn't get past. Not only that, but the sort of general realism was unsettlingly bad.
Please tell me what this is.
I am talking about Father of the Bride Part 2, starring Steve Martin.
So let's backtrack for a second.
Yeah.
I want to be clear, for those that didn't listen to that episode, how did we generally feel about the original Father of the Bride?
We liked it fine. We liked the book too.
Yeah. How did we feel about the Steve Martin remake?
We liked it fine. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. What about like Father's Little Dividend?
We
like
also
the original?
we thought that was funny.
Yeah.
We liked it.
And then we came to Father of the Bride Part 2.
My God, what a change. What a change.
Like, this movie was grown in a Hollywood petri dish.
Yes, for
like,
sure.
This script was grown. This is not a script. This is a spore. Like, every moment is a cliche.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, what did I say in the episode? It was something like...
How many times do they play slow motion basketball?
No, that's in the original.
Oh, okay.
That's in the wait, that's in the original remake.
Yes, you're right.
The original
The first
readaptation.
Steve Martin movie.
No, that's with the basketball. This one was basically, as a filmmaker, you should do research.
Yes.
But the research you do can't just be watching other movies.
Right.
That can't work. Because especially in a movie where like medicine, like modern medicine,
Oh my God.
and doctors and hospitals are such a big part of it, nothing makes sense ever.
No.
None of it's real. None of it rings true. Like, it doesn't even have to be 100% accurate. It just has to have enough in it there that you're engrossed in it. And for us, at least, we were not ever
No.
at all.
Not one time. Yeah, I mean, again, if you want to hear us go into great detail on this, I would encourage you to listen to that episode if you haven't. But for the time being, I think we can move on.
Okay.
Number 8.
Number 8 on our list is a monument. Yes, that's right. I am nominating a monument. This movie, now when you make a monument of something, it can be to a person or it can be to an idea. This movie is a monument to the hubris of one person. This is a monument to the hubris of Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
So we're talking about 1976's A Star is Born.
You know what's really funny?
Yeah?
I didn't nominate it for the reason that I assumed you wouldn't nominate it, which was that you really liked the music.
I did, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
That's fair. No, that's super fair.
I kind of enjoyed this movie, but I enjoyed it for reasons that weren't like inherent to the quality of the movie.
Yeah, that's super fair.
Like, I actually am not a huge fan of like getting together and watching bad movies together. I don't really like bad movies. I don't want to dunk on something. Like, I don't enjoy it. This actually had some stuff in it that like I kind of enjoyed, but holy shit, I need to separate myself from those things for a minute.
Okay.
This movie does not work. I fundamentally believe this movie does not work. You're taking something that was already made multiple times. Judy Garland is on our top 10 performances of
Absolutely.
the past year.
Absolutely.
And you've got no reason to make it other than we've got Barbra Streisand and she wants to do this. She wants to be the starring character in a movie that is all about how talented the starring character of the movie is.
Yes, she was executive producer.
Oh my goodness. So it does a bad job of everything. Like, first of all, it does a bad job of selling Chris Christopherson as a rock star, which is bad for a number of reasons. Like, one, this is actually a talented musician and performer.
Yeah, we liked his singing in the movie. We liked the songs.
Right? Well, the songs just sound like the songs from the Muppet movie,
Yeah, well,
which is a thing.
There's a reason for that.
But like, they're okay. So this is just always stuck with me. What they keep saying in the movie is that the public is no longer a fan of him because he's too self-destructive to be a rock star.
Right.
I don't understand that, and I don't think they understand that at all. Like, there's nothing that he's done that would mean that people would be over him.
Right.
At all.
And every time we see him perform, he's performing for like 30,000 people.
Yeah, they're into it.
Yeah,
They're always into
they
it.
really like it.
Which also doesn't make sense because the music is not the kind of...
And
anyway,
then they're into Barbara too.
That's
which
the other
is
part.
also really troubling.
they're so into Barbra Streisand and their styles of music are so completely different. And it's not like so like in The New Star is Born, one of the whole things is like Lady Gaga starts like appealing to an audience that is not like Jackson Maine's audience.
Right.
And that becomes a conflict between the two of them.
Right.
In this one, though, he's got his hard rock audience and he's putting up Barbra Streisand in front of them and they're like, oh, I love this.
Who I believe you described as looking like she's doing karaoke at her son's bar mitzvah.
She's so happy.
Yeah.
She's so happy all the time. She's so amazed with the things that are coming out of her mouth. Ugh, I hate this movie.
Yeah.
But I also enjoyed it.
It was not good.
But it deserves to be on our list of bottom adaptations.
That's fair.
Number 9.
Number 9, I am going to nominate a film that came out the same year that you could have gone to the movie theater and seen both of these movies. You could have done a double feature of A Star is Born, 1976, and King Kong, 1976.
Oof.
You could have seen Barbara and Dwan.
Ugh.
Again, we just put out our episode about King Kong. Like, I think it's 2 episodes before you're going to hear this. So I don't know that I want to go into it deeply, since we just talked about it, but I will just say that for sheer tastelessness, I mean, you were just talking about how it is important to have some kind of respect for the original film when you make an adaptation or a remake.
Can I do my impression of Dino De Laurentiis,
Yeah,
producer
absolutely.
of this movie? Oh, that movie, King Kong, the movie everyone loves, garbage, piece of shit. I make a great movie. I make the good version.
It's not the good version.
No, it
It's
isn't.
very bad. It just, I mean,
Another monument to hubris.
another monument to hubris. Just a movie that requires a delicate hand on the special effects. I believe I described Kong as looking like the centerpiece from a rainforest cafe.
Yes.
Which is the best line I've ever come up with.
Can
for
we
the
get to
podcast.
Dwan? Can we get to fucking Dwan?
And just the way that the female character, like, talk about the female character is underwritten. This might be like my number one choice for the female character is underwritten. Like, if we had done a top 10 for that, I think this would be my number one. The character of Dwan not only is ridiculous, but every time I have to talk about it and say the word Dwan, it makes me so angry because the name is so stupid.
Do you want to move on?
Let's move on.
Okay, number 10. This is big. And it's weird to end like with such a big moment with something so small.
Okay.
I'm ending with a TV movie.
Okay.
I'm ending with a TV movie from 2002.
Okay.
That I'm assuming many people have never seen.
Okay.
But I'm bring it back to Sherlock Holmes. And there was a TV movie called Sherlock: Case of Evil.
Oh, it was very bad.
It was atrocious.
It was really, really
so you
bad.
have fine actors like James Darcy playing Sherlock Holmes and Vincent D'Onofrio playing Moriarty.
Tragically miscast as Moriarty.
Tragically. I don't even think it's going to take that long to talk about
It was
this
really,
one.
really bad.
This
They had a
is-
sword fight on the streets of London.
Why is this movie on my list? This movie is on my list because it is the perfect example of what happens when you have people making something that's an adaptation when they fundamentally don't understand the source material.
Yeah.
The only thing they know of it are like the few times they've seen those characters in pop culture. And it's also a product of its time. So you've got something from 2002, which was like the post like 90s superhero kind of movie thing where superhero movies were all defined by how black and white they were. The heroes were always very, very heroic and the villains were always monologuing like crazy and they always have like a crazy plan and they have to explain everything. And we've gotten to the point now where like we've finally established a little bit of like subtlety in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. This one has none of it and it's still Sherlock Holmes. So it manages to play like a bad police procedural with like gross autopsy scenes and a bad superhero movie at the same time.
Yep.
Like, do you remember Moriarty's like plot? What his whole plot is for this?
It was something about like drug smuggling, wasn't it?
He wants to like corner the drug market
Right.
in London.
Yeah.
But he has to explain all of that to Holmes while he's got him captured.
Yeah, yeah. And it just had these like insane winks at the audience. Like you had the policeman talking to Sherlock Holmes about like, I fear we've got a multiple killer over here. And Sherlock Holmes turning to the camera, basically winking and saying, I prefer the term serial killer.
Like, no, you fucking
No,
don't.
you fucking do not. That term was invented in the 70s, the 1970s.
It's
so
just-
fuck you.
it's-
Fuck you.
I don't want to spend any more time on this. It's just the epitome of bad TV movie.
Yes.
And I'd like to move away.
Let us do that, please.
Okay, so let's talk about the best shit. This is the good shit. We've got our top 10 adaptations from year 2 of Adapter Parish.
Indeed, we do.
This humble podcast. I get to go first,
You
right?
get to go first. Yeah, do it.
All right. It's so funny. I've gone back and forth about what my list looked like. But from minute 1, this was always number 1 on my list
Okay.
because this was the one that surprised me the most. It was a movie I'd never seen before we watched it. It was one I always should have seen, but never did for whatever reason. I see you're crossing something off your list right now.
I think I am, but
This
go on.
movie was exciting and beautiful and destroyed me emotionally.
Yeah,
and
I know what it is now.
I felt seen in so many different ways. It was not only better than it had any right to be, but it was better than I could have ever expected it to be. What's number 1 on our list?
Can I ask you one thing?
Yes, please.
Did you cry a whole lot while you were watching this movie?
Oh, constantly.
And I'm just trying to distinguish it from something else on the list. Did it have songs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's The Prince of Egypt.
Yes, it is. This was DreamWorks, The Prince of Egypt from 1998. I love this movie. Love this movie. Like it was, and it really comes down to one thing. We watch so many versions of the 10 Commandments, and I am saying this as a Jew.
As a Jew.
Until we watched The Prince of Egypt, a story about the Jewish people, I never actually felt like the story was being told for the Jewish people.
I agree with that. Yes.
This movie was about the people that it's so hard for me to talk about because I'm so emotional about it. I watched this movie like 3 times while we were doing this episode.
Yeah.
It is just so wonderful in so many different ways. Here's a couple things about it. One, it manages to do the story in a way that's respectful to the fact that this story is really important to not just Christians but also to Jews and Muslims. For example,
Yes.
it starts off by saying that they actually consulted with leaders of the different like Abrahamic religions for this. So it becomes very respectful for those people. On top of that, it's such a fucking good time. It's so well made. The cast is fantastic. Yes, it's a little problematic. Yes, they're all white, but it was 20 years ago and we would do a little bit better now.
The songs are wonderful.
The songs are so good. It's a beautiful movie. I love it so much. That's number 1 on our list.
I support this. It was number 2 on mine.
Oh, for real?
Just so you know.
Cool. What's number 2? What's our actual number 2 on this list?
Well, we talked about this a little bit. I think some of mine for my top adaptations are going to be the top adaptations for the same reasons that Top Cast were Top Cast, which is that sometimes with an adaptation, like the reason it's so amazing is that whoever's making it has done an amazing job with the casting. So we may not need to spend a lot of time on this one because we already talked about it a lot. And that is 1983 miniseries Jane Eyre starring Zella Clark.
Okay.
Just in terms of a very faithful adaptation that jumps off the page. It is almost perfect. The production quality is not great. It's a BBC miniseries from 1983. The casting is just so perfect. And I'm not saying this to say that what I value above all other things in adaptation is perfect adherence to the source material, because we've covered this. Like, of course, that's not what we think. But in this case, that's the direction they chose to go in, and they did an amazing job. I would watch it anytime. It's wonderful. And again, part of the reason it's so good is all of the things we talked about in terms of the casting of Zella Clark in particular, but also all of the other characters in all the small roles as well. And because it's a miniseries, they had a lot of time to kind of dive into all of these like little subtleties and side plots that really, in many cases, aren't in any of the other Jane Eyres that we watch, because they had the time to explore all of the stuff that made the book itself so wonderful. Like, rather than just the surface plot, there's all of this other stuff going on that they had the time to really get into. And I really, really liked it, and I really love it, and I would watch it over and over again. So that is my pick for number 2.
That's surprising. Like, that's actually like not the Jane Eyre I would have expected you to put on this list.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
All right. Well, moving on to number 3. So this was another one where we got to watch multiple versions of something. It wasn't a one-to-one comparison, book to movie. This was a weird one for me because it came out in 2005, and I saw it in the theater, and I walked out of it at the time thinking, yeah, it's fine. That's fun. It didn't do a lot for me, and it was certainly from source material that was never that important to me. And that was The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from 2005.
Oh, interesting. I knew that you liked it, but I would not have put this so high on your list.
This movie gets better the more I think about it. Like, the things that I'm impressed by, I get more and more impressed by as time goes on. So I think its strength comes from 2 different things. Like, is this the greatest movie that we looked at in the year? Like, not necessarily, but in terms of adaptation, I think it's incredible. First, the story is told in a really great and smart way. Like, I don't think C.S. Lewis, when he was writing the book, I think it has compelling aspects, but as a story, I don't think it's an incredibly compelling story from page 1 to the end. The stakes are raised throughout. Motivations make more sense. The character relationships make more sense. The kids feel like kids. They actually feel like they have relationships with each other. They all go through arcs over the course of the movie. They never feel like they're just placeholders for an allegory, which was our really big problem with other versions of this, including the book.
Yeah, totally.
But the second thing that I really love about it is just what happens when a director comes to a piece of content and they really commit to saying, well, this was something I read when I was a kid. I want to make the movie of what I remember it being, not what's actually on the page.
Yeah.
So there are things in this movie that are absolutely not in the book. Like in the book, we know that the kids are leaving London because of the Blitz, but we never see the Blitz. But this movie opens with it.
Yeah.
And I think it gives the audience amazing context for what it is that they're going through.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like the battle at the end. That battle is like really not in the book at all. We don't see the beginning or the middle of it. It's just we arrive as it's ending. And in his head, he was like, no, of course the battle's in the book. What are you talking about? And when he came to actually doing it, looking back at the book, he realized it was never there and that was just in his memory. So he got to put what was in his head on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, which is just a wonderful example of what we talked about, I think, at the very beginning of the podcast, which is someone who deeply, deeply cared about the material, bringing the things that were important to them to the piece of art that they're making.
Yeah. And then more than anything, it was... This is apparently my entire list is just about like me having a chip on my shoulder because I'm Jewish. Like... I've always felt like the Chronicles of Narnia was a piece of content that was pushing me away because it wasn't written for me. But there were things in it that I should be identifying with, but it was always so quick to remind me like, oh no, you're not part of this. And I've talked to a lot of people who love The Prince of Egypt who are not Jewish, and I think that's one of the ways it succeeds. I think this movie succeeds in being something that becomes incredibly compelling for someone who's not in it for the allegory.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that doesn't really know what we're talking about and hasn't heard the episode, I would just invite you to imagine what the repetition of the phrase always winter, never Christmas feels like for someone that doesn't celebrate Christmas.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this movie has it, but it does it in a way that I think is really, really smart.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tilda Swinton's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in the top cast.
And all the kids were great. We really liked the performances.
So good.
They made them all, they kind of aged all of them up a little bit.
Up and down a little bit.
Up and down. Yeah, like Lucy was a little bit younger and Peter was a little bit older, and I think it really worked.
So that's number 3.
Yeah.
What's number 4?
Number 4 is a film that I don't think we've talked about yet. I'm actually skipping a couple because we've already talked about them in terms of casting, and I don't want to be too repetitious. So I'm going to skip down to a film that we watched 2 versions of and read the book. And one of the 2 film versions, the more recent one, we really felt like encapsulated the spirit and intention of the book in a way that the earlier film didn't necessarily do.
Okay.
Because we read a book that we thought was going to be a Western and was fucking hilarious and was a comedy satire.
I'm crossing one off my list.
And when the Coen brothers optioned this piece of material, they also realized it was funny. And that is True Grit from 2010. Apart from the amazing performances of Jeff Bridges and Haley Steinfeld, who were nominated as in our like big list of top cast, although it doesn't sound like they made it for either of our short
well, it
lists.
was a very strong group of people.
It was a strong group of people. Like apart from the chemistry of the 2 of them, just the tone and tenor of this movie, the performances of these characters, like you very rarely see a movie, I feel like, where everyone just gets it. They get the movie that they're in. We are making something, and it's a Coen Brothers movie, right? So everybody is kind of pitch perfect in that sense. They just got the tone, as you were saying. Tone is so important, especially in adaptation. They just got it perfect. It is so funny, but it is also, it's not a slapstick comedy. It's not Blazing Saddles. Like there's serious stuff that happens. People get hurt. People get killed. But it is a wonderful, wonderful movie with characters that really take a journey, literally and figuratively, and show a lot of progression, and probably a book that not a lot of people in this day and age, although it was really popular, we learned like when it came out, probably not a lot of people have read that source material, True Grit, but it is, in terms of tone, really, really faithful to the source, and it was just a delight to watch.
Yeah, it was one of my alternates. I was wondering if we would get to it. My big thing about it is it's a great example of what happens when people readapt something, but it's clearly not informed by the previous adaptation.
Right. And we liked the John Wayne version.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't dislike it. We didn't have anything like bad to say about it necessarily, other than a few things here and there, but we loved this movie. Moving on.
Number 5. Okay, so we watched Godzilla. We've already talked about Godzilla. And we watched the original, And then we watched the one from 1998, which is clearly on our low list, our bottom 10.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes the original so powerful is that on top of being a fun monster movie, it's informed by tragedy. It's informed by like generational tragedy in Japan, specifically Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
If you're going to remake this movie, you don't have to do this, but it would be really smart to remake it in a way where your remake is informed by a tragedy that defined its day.
Yes.
And we watched a movie, and this is again, this is in the category of like unexpected delights.
Yeah.
We watched the Japanese movie Shin Godzilla from 2016.
Yeah.
I was not ready for what we got.
Yeah. What a weird, fascinating, unusual movie.
I think this is a movie that everyone should see.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. It's not perfect.
No.
Like, I think it gets kind of slow in the third act, but this is a movie like nothing I have ever seen that also perfectly encapsulates what the feeling is like during a disaster. In this case, the tsunami and Fukushima.
Yeah.
Like, the intractable bureaucracy of it. And just the helplessness that people are feeling, but not in a melodramatic way, in a more satirical way.
Yeah.
And like also on top of all of that, Godzilla he's back to being like scary.
Yeah, he's scary and gross. He's really gross.
Really terrifying just because of how unstoppable he is. Like, this was just an amazing adaptation. I was so impressed with this movie.
Yeah, it was I think one of the weirdest and, as you say, like most unexpected things that we watched. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating. It was a really, really interesting movie.
But that's number 5 on
Yeah.
our list. What about number 6?
Number 6, I'm going to go back to one that we've already talked about, because I can't in good conscience let this slide without making it onto this list.
Uh-huh.
This was a movie that we had both seen many, 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 many times, but it was a book that I had not read, and it was a book that we kind of hated. So I think it's only right to have an example on our list of top 10 adaptations of something where the adaptation or the movie version rose so far above the source material because the movie maker was able to kind of extract the core story and leave all the fucking bullshit behind. And we have many, many examples of that. I have another one actually that we may get to, or we may not.
There was like 2 I was deciding between.
Yeah,
I don't know. I actually don't know which one you're going to say.
There's a couple. But I could not let this pass without putting The Hunt for Red October on our
Yay!
on our list. This is one of Jeremy's favorite movies to begin with.
Well, I mean, to reiterate.
And I don't know that there's much to be said about it that has not already been said by us earlier today. But there's a reason that everyone's dad loves this movie. It's a real good movie. It's exciting. It's suspenseful. The performances are all great. But as I say, like, I think its real genius is in the way that it was able to be adapted from this 450-page novel about submarine facts that was literally published by the Navy. That's how dry the novel was, which is something I don't know that everybody that watches this movie, I was going to say everybody that watches this movie at Christmas time. I think that's just an us thing. We watch it at Christmas every year.
I think that's just an us thing?
I'm pretty sure that's just an us thing. But that everyone that watches this movie, I'm not sure that's something that everybody can appreciate, because I don't know that everybody's read the book. So that is my pick, The Hunt for Red October.
It's just a perfect movie.
Yeah, it's so
like
good.
the best way I can describe it is like, here's an old chestnut as a way of describing something. As a for instance, like, okay, you talk about food. And you can go out to amazing food from so many different lands, but you can also have like a cheeseburger, right? And yeah, I guess a lot of times you would say like a cheeseburger's not as good as like a 3-star, like in a 5-star meal or something like that. I don't know how many stars people give to things anymore.
Doesn't matter.
But what if it's the best fucking cheeseburger you've ever had in your entire life?
That's right.
That's
right.
This movie. This movie is the model for this type of movie. I have seen so many movies that are trying to be The Hunt for Red October. Crimson Tide. There are so many movies that are trying to be this. It is the perfect example of this type of movie. It is a movie where everyone who is practicing their individual craft, whether it's cinematography, music, acting, direction, set design, special effects, every single person involved is operating at the top of their game. It's a perfect movie.
There it is.
Oh, that's great.
Moving on.
That's great. I'm glad
Yay.
Red October's on this list. Number 7. This is, again, another one that's come up multiple times. This one came up for acting before. And I felt a little weird including it because, like, it wasn't unexpected at all. I was expecting it to be very good because everyone who ever saw it was said it was very good. And I finally saw it as a result of this episode. And you brought it up before. You thought I was going to say it for number 1.
Ah, yes.
And this is Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, my goodness.
From 2005.
Yeah.
Like, the reason I put it on here, and it's so simple, but, like, this is the best example of straightforward adaptation we watched the entire year.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Brokeback Mountain is that it is based on a 55-page short story.
Yeah.
And every page of that short story is in this movie.
Everything.
And
they didn't even add much.
No.
That translates perfectly to like a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a movie where everything is impeccable and everything supports that central story.
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah.
We were amazed at like how emotionally intelligent Ang Lee is as a director.
Yeah.
Like everything works in this.
Yeah.
I sympathized and empathized with every single character. It made me reevaluate. Let me put it this way. Watching it for the first time through the lens of today, where it is much easier to talk about the effects of the patriarchy on society, was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Because we weren't talking about those kind of things on a national level in 2005.
Mm-mm.
And I love and will always cherish that experience of watching this movie for the first time now. This movie is incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it just has spawned so many discussions. And it's this perfect example of just a piece of art that can represent so many different things to so many different people. And it is ambiguous, but it still works perfectly.
Yeah. No, I have nothing to add to that. It's a great, like, truly great capital G movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Number 8?
Number 8. I'm going to take it in a little bit of a different direction.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about something, again, like, I feel like as we go through this, there's really these two categories. It's like, what did we respond to? Either an amazing straightforward adaptation that just took the source material and did a beautiful job translating it to the screen, or something where someone with a vision said, I got something out of this and I want to show it on screen. And it doesn't really matter whether or not it's straight out of the book or not, because the feeling of it is the feeling I get when I read the book, and that's what's important. So that's why I have nominated the film Fantastic Mr. Fox.
This is one of my alternates. That's great.
The funny thing about this movie is, so we read the book, right? It's very short. And I remember being about 30 minutes into this movie and turning to you and going, wait, this is the end of the book. Where are they going to go from here? Is this a very short movie? And the way that Wes Anderson takes these characters and expands on them. There are characters in this movie that are not in the book at all. Christopherson, completely random, brand new character made up out of whole cloth. Wonderful character, amazing. Mm-hmm. All of the different animals, his friend, the opossum, and the lawyer, like all of these characters come together to create this like really magical world that is clearly what Wes Anderson, who's kind of an auteur director, right, sees when he reads this short children's story, Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think it's a wonderful example of what can happen when two minds that are very, very, very imaginative, Roald Dahl in this case and Wes Anderson, come together and actually produce something that's almost greater than the sum of either of their parts. Because sometimes when that happens, these things clash. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it just worked out perfectly. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, I think honorable mention too was the fact that we did this with Where the Wild Things Are, which I think is another really good example of this.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Fantastic Mr. Fox is the one that belongs on our top 10.
I agree.
Yeah, I actually had this on my alternates. Like I said, I love how he made it work for his style. I also love on top of that, like he created an animated aesthetic for this.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Like just beautiful to look at, this movie.
But he also honored the life of Roald Dahl in the movie, which, we found out as we find out more about him, maybe he's not a person whose life deserves to be kind of honored in so many ways.
But
he has also brought joy to the lives of millions of children through his work, so that says something. But like Wes Anderson went to where he lived to incorporate things from his life in this movie. This movie doesn't just take place in a nameless place. This movie takes place in the town that Roald Dahl lived in.
Yeah.
And it just says a lot. It's just so lovingly crafted. It is a great movie.
Yes. Number 9?
Number 9. This is my last one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Making Shakespeare make sense dramatically is harder than people think it is.
Indeed.
You can't just show up and read the lines.
You know how I know that?
How do you know that?
I literally have a graduate degree in making Shakespeare make sense dramatically.
And how many times have you directed Shakespeare? Is it several?
It's several.
Several.
It's hard.
It is hard. You don't just show up and read it. And we watched adaptations of Romeo and Juliet that were, when they were bad, they were really bad. And even when they were pretty good, they still felt like it was just the characters showing up, the actors showing up and just reading their lines.
Yes.
Thinking, oh, well, if we just read the lines, we get an A just for showing up.
Yes.
But there is someone who I think gets an A because of the work they put in. And that was Franco Zeffirelli in his 1968 adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. I see you crossing something off your list. I'm glad we're on the same page about this.
We are.
I feel like I had never seen Romeo and Juliet until I watched his version. He makes every single line, every single action makes sense dramatically and emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example of a Shakespeare production that, like, I don't know what his budget was for this. Like, it was probably high because it was shot, everything's beautiful, but it's not.
They are beautiful. The boys are beautiful. The girls,
everybody's beautiful. The costumes are beautiful. Like, the location, it's all on location. Like, everything is gorgeous. I'm not saying like, oh, this was like some low budget movie and all he cared about was the text. But like the way that he understood and elevated the text, Shakespeare's language, which is the important thing about Shakespeare, I think one could argue.
Yes.
Was done in a way that I've certainly never seen in like a mainstream theatrical release of a Shakespeare movie. Certainly haven't. Yeah.
I feel like two of the best examples I can give from this, like I'll give a small one and then I'll give like a really big one. So the small one, the fight with Tybalt.
Yes.
When Romeo kills Tybalt, it's a really, really complicated scene because like first Mercutio starts fighting with Tybalt, but it's not very serious. And then it gets serious and Mercutio ends up getting killed accidentally by Tybalt and Romeo goes after Tybalt and like, what I'm describing, we see in every version, but the problem is it's just shown.
Right.
Everyone just looked at it and go, okay, well, they start fighting and then Tybalt. So Tybalt's a bad guy, so we're going to have Tybalt be a bad guy. Like, he's clearly the villain. Like, in the 2013 version, he is an outright, like, mustache-twirling villain.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But even at best, like, he's still a villain. This Tybalt didn't feel like a villain. This Tybalt felt like an asshole.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between those two things.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about just an asshole that kind of gets in over his head a little bit.
Way in over his head. Like, as I'm watching this movie made me feel for every single character. I felt bad for Tybalt in this one.
Yeah.
When Romeo kills him, I wasn't sitting there like with this bloodlust that an audience can get thinking this character deserves to die. I didn't want any of the characters to die, and that scene's handled beautifully. But then more than that, the big thing goes along with that, which is this was the only version of Romeo and Juliet that we watched that made me think these are two kids that are in love and I don't want them to die.
Yes.
That is what you as an audience are supposed to feel when you're watching Romeo and Juliet.
That's right.
And if you make a version of Romeo and Juliet and the audience is like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen, you fucked up.
Yes.
You really fucked up.
Yeah.
And Zeffirelli did a great job. This movie is great and everyone should see it.
And maybe like not in your 8th grade language arts class. Like go home and watch it.
Not in your 8th grade class with like the TV on the cart and the teacher has to turn it around for that one
for the
scene.
boob scene. Yeah, don't do that. Just watch it like a normal person.
Yeah, it's real good. Do you want to round out our second year of Adapter Parish, please?
I do. So I have a couple things on my list that aren't crossed off yet. And as you were talking so beautifully about Romeo and Juliet, I was thinking about like which one of these did I just most genuinely enjoy watching from my heart?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm going to go with, the one that I just found enjoyable and wonderful and fun and great, and would watch again. I've got another Jane Eyre. It's the 2006 Ruth Wilson Jane Eyre miniseries.
Oh, I'm very happy that one's on there.
Yeah. I
Made me cry the most.
I love this Jane Eyre. I love it. And this is yet another example of something that is, whereas I was talking about the Zella Clark Jane Eyre as being a straight off the page adaptation, and that's what they did. This is something where a director said, a female director, BT Dubs, said, I know what I get out of this. This is a story about someone looking for a family, and that's the story I'm going to tell. It just has a beautiful through line about that journey of Jane's, and has kind of a cheesy ending, but one that it earns by focusing on this desire of Jane's throughout the movie or throughout the miniseries, where she finally gets a family. Jeremy's crying.
No, I'm not.
He cried in the episode when we talked about it.
Oh, I
sure.
cried so much. I sobbed when we were watching it. I
Yep.
cried in the episode. I'm not crying right now. Can I tell you why I'm not crying right now?
Why is that?
Because as you were talking about all of that, I was just thinking, it's amazing to me that what you're talking about is the through line of her finding a family, which when I know for a fact that the reason you're going to keep coming back to this movie is how fucking sexy Toby Stephens is.
There's also that.
There is some chemistry. Can we talk about sexual chemistry?
Flaming hot sexual chemistry.
The best sexual chemistry in anything we have watched on this show
and
up
also,
till now.
like, some sexy scenes, like fully clothed, but like, whoo, some sex. There's some sex in this. It's great. I like it.
Like, he's not my favorite Rochester,
No,
but
but
he's a
he's-
great Rochester.
He's literally steaming hot. And the way that the two of them look at each other is electric. Again, talk about chemistry.
My favorite moment, like maybe from any of our episodes that we've done, is when you talk about the little ribbon that she wears
Yeah.
in the episode.
Oh my God, this sad little ribbon.
She just wants to look pretty.
She just wants to look pretty, and she has nothing. She has nothing. She just wants to look pretty for him.
Can I give an honorable mention?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a fantastic number 10. I really like our top 10.
Yes.
I want to throw in an honorable mention. This is a little one. This was from one that's like not one of our best episodes ever, or maybe our most listened to episodes ever. But this was something that resonated with me. The 2016 remake of Pete's Dragon.
Oh yeah.
From Disney. I loved it. Like, Disney's been going remake crazy in the last 10 years, and this was one that's just kind of sitting in there with all of these really, really faithful remakes. It is brave enough to be its own thing. I love this movie. You've got Robert Redford, and you've got Bryce Dallas Howard, and Carl Urban being great, and Oakes Fegley as this amazing version of Pete that's so utterly different than the original.
He was good. He was cute.
You have an Elliot that I grew up on the original, and this movie surprised me so much. I love it. I think it is just a really low-key new classic. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah. I mean, if I can throw in an honorable mention,
Please.
I will pick one off my list that didn't make the top 10. But if you just want like a real funny action movie starring a legend of stage and screen, I could not steer you wrong if I steered you towards 1974's The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Oh, it's fucking great.
Starring Walter Matthau. Do not watch any other version. This is the only one. Do not read the book. Just watch this. It is great.
5-star movie. It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been a second year of Adapter Parish.
We did it.
I've said it many times. You're all great. We love all of our listeners. We love hearing from all of you. We cannot wait for year 3. We are still planning to release new episodes every 2 weeks.
We will do our best.
We're going to do our best. You might hear a rerun in there or two.
Or a very short episode starring our upcoming third podcast host. We will find out.
Oh, goodness. But it has been wonderful having all of you with us for this wonderful journey through the wilderness of podcasting. That's all I've got.
I got nothing.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 2 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. 5 stars, please.
Please.
Please. Please.
Hey,
Hey, what's up?
happy 2nd anniversary. I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
And bye, everybody.